Washington. It will soon be official. When the clock strikes midnight, we will be under a partial government shutdown for the second time this year. Congressional leaders spent the day scrambling to beat the clock and get their record-breaking spending deal through, but the objection of one senator delaying the vote, bringing the Senate to a standstill. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel is working it live on Capitol Hill to tell us what is going on this evening. And right now, Mike, it sounds like not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot, Shannon. Indeed, the deadline is approaching, but Kentucky Senator Rand Paul wanted to protest additional spending in this budget agreement. Earlier, we had Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer warning Senator Paul he was playing with fire, while Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell made this direct appeal to Paul.
I understand my friend and colleague from Kentucky does not join the president in supporting the bill. And it's his right, of course, to vote against the bill. But I would argue that it's time to vote.
We could move forward and get a bill done and not risk a government shutdown. We're in risky territory here, as both friends from Kentucky know. So if that would accomplish the same thing, not hold us up here, let the House do its will.
Paul wanted to make his point about excessive government spending, even though it is not expected to change the outcome.
So it's a canard to say we can't have one amendment and can't spend 15 minutes debating whether or not it's good for the country to add $1 trillion in debt. So, Madam President, I object.
At one point, things got really tense when fellow Republican Thom Tillis of North Carolina blasted Senator Paul, accusing him of wasting time and for making government employees sweat about a possible government shutdown.
So employees out there, I apologize on behalf of people that can't give you certainty right now at 9 o'clock. But at 1 a.m., you'll have it. And I'm sorry that we have to go through this process, and we seem to go through it far too often.
Earlier, House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi was in an awkward spot. Pelosi negotiated the budget agreement, but was speaking against it for an unrelated issue, immigration.
Many of our priorities are in the bill. I have an unease with it and hope that the Speaker will man up and decide that we in the House can also have what's Mitch McConnell guaranteed in the Senate, a vote on the floor. I'm pleased with the product. I'm not pleased with the process.
So you will vote for it?
No, I won't.
Recognizing he will need Democrat votes, Speaker Paul Ryan tried to reassure Pelosi's rank-and-file members.
To anyone who doubts my intention to solve this problem and bring up a DACA and immigration reform bill, do not. We will bring a solution to the floor, one that the president will sign. We must pass this budget agreement first, though, so that we can get on to that.
House Republican leaders are warning their members they may be voting in the 3 to 6 a.m. range, perhaps a little later. If so, government employees will be waking up to find out whether they should go to work or whether we're in a partial government shutdown. Shannon?
All right. I understand the Senate is convened now until 12:01. They'll start a fresh day and tackle this right after midnight. Mike, we know you're on it, so thank you for keeping us up to date. All right. We're joined now by Republican Senator from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, who has just walked off the Senate floor. What is the mood like over there? Because I got to say, I think that your colleague, Senator Rand Paul, has done something that it's been tough to do lately, which is to get bipartisan agreement on something. Everyone's mad at him, including you.
Well, it's not that I'm mad at Rand. He's very sincere, but I think he's doing a very dangerous thing. To President Trump, if you're watching tonight.
Oh, I'm sure he is.
Thank you and God bless you for fighting for the men and women in the military. By the sunrise tomorrow, I won't get much sleep, but the military will have $160 billion they desperately need. We're spending at an all-time low on our military since World War II. More people have been killed in training accidents than in combat, and Donald Trump is delivering on his campaign promise to rebuild the military. General Mattis likes this budget deal. And to Senator Paul, the deficit is a problem. The debt is a problem. Entitlement reform is necessary, and I applaud you for being courageous enough to talk about delaying retirement and means testing benefits. But on national security, you have been wrong at every turn. You do not understand what our military has been facing since 2011. There are planes that can't fly, there are soldiers that can't deploy, there are families that have to miss their family members way too much because we don't have enough people in the Army, the Navy, Air Force, and the Marine Corps, and we're about to finish that. So he can play his little games, but when the sun comes up tomorrow, The military is going to be flush with cash, and God bless those who are doing the fighting.
All right, they're not the only ones, though, because this is a record-breaking spending package.
Not
there
really.
are plenty. Well, according to all of the numbers in history until now, I mean, this is going to be the biggest package out there, and a lot of that is domestic spending as well, and the Democrats have gotten a lot of what they asked for on that front. So you know there are deficit hawks out there. Rand Paul's not alone. I mean, there are plenty of folks over in the House side, too, that have big problems with it and say that's not why the GOP was sent to Washington. They were sent to cut back government and cut back spending, and this package, they say, doesn't do it.
I don't know why they were sent, but I know why I was sent from South Carolina to make sure we can defend the nation. The number one priority of the federal government, above all else, is to defend the nation. And look at the threats we face. There's a war going on in Afghanistan. President Trump has taken the gloves off, and we're pounding ISIL. We're pounding the Taliban. God bless you, President Trump. And you're fighting for those who need more money and more resources, more people in the military to help those who've suffered so long. So this is the number one priority for me. I'm a Republican. The number one priority is to fund the military, and this will do it.
What do you say to those, though, including some military leaders in the past who have said the national debt and where we are with respect to China and other countries that own us in some sense, that's a national security issue as well?
Tell them. Go where the money's at. 2/3 of the federal budget is Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid, and interest on the debt. 1/3 of the federal budget is discretionary spending. Half of that 1/3 is military spending. You could wipe out the Department of Defense, not balance the budget. You got to delay retirement for young people. You got to ask people like me to pay more into Medicare and take less from Social Security. Rand Paul knows that. I congratulate him for being strong on entitlements, but when it comes to national security, he's been a disaster. He said tonight the best way to give the military a pay raise is to withdraw from Afghanistan. Name one general who believes it's smart to withdraw from Afghanistan. President Trump, you're doing the right thing by taking the fight to the enemy in Afghanistan. The last time we ignored Afghanistan, we got 9/11. And the only way you're going to prevent 9/11s in the future is to have our soldiers over there protecting us here. And our military has suffered since 2011 under these budget cuts. And tonight, we begin to correct that problem. God bless Donald Trump. And Rand Paul is standing in the way of President Trump, Commander-in-Chief Trump, fulfilling a campaign promise to rebuild the military. And General Mattis said the following: no enemy in the field has done more damage to the American military than the budget cuts and continuing resolutions authored by Congress. So Congress has done more damage to our military than any enemy in the field, and that's going to change tonight.
Okay, so for you, the price tag is not a concern. The long-term impact on the deficit.
The long-term impact of the deficit comes from entitlement reform. You could wipe out the Department of Defense and not even move the debt needle. Here's what I'm saying. When it comes to military spending, it's the most important thing we've done. We're spending less on the military per GDP-wise than any time since World War II. Does that really make sense to have the smallest Navy since 1915, the smallest Army since 1940? General Mattis has been begging us to get off the sidelines and get back in the game and give the warfighter what they need. You know, President Trump listens to the general. The rest of us have listened to the general. Senator Paul thinks he knows more about the military than those who are in the military. He's never been to Afghanistan, so I don't want to hear from him what it takes to win a war in Afghanistan when he's never been there.
Well, he says he's listening to his constituents, and he's not the only one. So let me ask you.
I don't know who his constituents are, but they're not my constituents.
Okay, well, you do come from two different states, South Carolina and Kentucky.
But you got listening to people in Kentucky.
You got to go back over there now.
I'm going to go fight for our military. To those in the military, by the sunrise tomorrow, you're going to have more resources. Your Commander-in-Chief is coming to your aid, and Congress is going to clean up his act.
Are y'all going to hug? Will you hug it out? A little bit. Will there be a kumbaya moment at some point?
It ain't about him. It ain't about me. It's about those who are doing the fighting. We're nobodies when it comes to the war on terrorism. Nobody in Congress is going to protect your family from radical Islam. The people in the field doing the fighting are going to protect you from radical Islam. And tonight, Congress is going to finally help them after 7 years of doing nothing.
Well, you have spent many decades in the military as well.
33 years.
Good to see you. Fired up. And I like that because now you have energy.
Ready to vote.
You've got the energy to go back and work past midnight, past your bedtime.
They got the energy to fight. I got the energy to vote.
All right, Senator Graham, good to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.